The key to success on the field and in your backyard is a comprehensive game plan. So if you're building a fence or a deck this year, trust a Turkstra coach to design, quote, or order the right materials for your project. Visit a Turkstra Lumber near you to learn more.
From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker.
Welcome to the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker. The Coach O Show is presented by Turkstra Lumber. If you're thinking of tackling a project at your home, talk to a project coach at Turkstra Lumber. They can help with everything from ordering a new front door to designing a new deck or fence. Do it yourself does not mean do it alone. Visit TurkstraLumber.com to learn more. Coach, great to see you, man. And first of all, congrats on making it through the weekend and being inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. That's a great honor.
Appreciate it, Luke. No, it was they put on a fantastic event, and obviously I went in with no expectations, just trying to soak everything up and be in the moment. And nice to see some familiar faces that I played against, and to meet the ones that, of course, I may have only heard about or not at all.
Yeah, that's great. It's official now. Your bust is standing up in Tim Hortons Field in the Hall of Fame room for all football history. That's fantastic, man. The listeners can tune in to the Ticats Audio Network this week. We will have a special podcast where one special member in my football life and community, Marv Levy, was inducted alongside of yourself, Coach O, and actually my dad, Steve, and I will interview him on the Ticats Audio Network later this week. Very, very cool for me to have my coach inducted and my dad's into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. So that's to come on the Ticats Audio Network. Coach, your family was around. The fans were all that supported you throughout your career, and now as a coach were there. What was it like when you accepted that induction?
Just a feeling of just like gratefulness, and like just trying to soak it in. And then when you're up on the podium and you're looking out, it's a whole different feeling because it's like you're here. Like this is it. And when Penn presented me the jacket, it was even more surreal. So that was a fun time there. It's, as you can tell, I'm struggling to put it into words. It's just kind of something you have to experience and feel. Obviously, I could tell you that it felt great, and I was excited and anxious and all the emotions. But those are just overviews. But specifically, just happy for everybody that was supportive of me along the journey, whether that was a text message, an email. It wasn't just about the people that were there. It was people that just were extremely genuinely happy that I was able to accomplish something like that. People that felt like they may have had a hand in the journey. Those people that's what got me excited. The ones that were there it was outstanding. Having to be surrounded by friends, that's awesome. But I know a lot of people shared in the joy of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. A lot of that response sounds like when players get asked, what do you feel after they've won a Grey Cup? I've never won a Grey Cup. But how do you compare that? Sort of the two notches on a football player's belt. They see, the winning the championship and going into the Hall of Fame. How does it compare, those two?
Great question. I'm not sure I have a great answer, but I'll try. And I'll say that I think the Grey Cup is a sense of accomplishment of we did it, and it's kind of recognized that, like, everybody doesn't get a cup, right? Everybody's etched on the cup. That's huge. And I think it also depends on, which Grey Cup you've won. Is it your first? Is it your second? But
sure.
Or the multiple Grey Cups. Whereas this is really odd because I'm talking the Hall of Fame induction, because it's the ultimate team sport where you're getting recognized as an individual. And so I'd say that's the biggest difference, is that after you're in the Grey Cup, or you could equate it to the East Final and just the locker room feeling. And when the trophy's out there, it's very similar. It's very similar, just like a sense of accomplishment. You're not thinking of yourself or your catches. You're thinking, we did this. And I think you're forced to reflect a little bit more on yourself, even though it is an ultimate team sport when you're being inducted to a Hall of Fame.
Of course, last week we kind of discussed and maybe some of the Hall of Fame ceremonies in the week leading up it could be easily seen as a distraction from you, and probably different from a lot of the other players, a lot of the other great players and coaches who are getting inducted. You had a big job to do that week, and I could see how that could be distracting. But the inverse of that, the unfortunate thing for you, is you had a job to do. So did you felt like, were you able to enjoy it to its fullest extent, meaning the Hall of Fame induction, or were you somewhat distracted from being able to enjoy such a great honor?
Well, I'd be lying if I said I thought I could enjoy it to the fullest because, obviously, just my time was budgeted, and then, there was restraints, and I had responsibilities, but I still wanted to take in as much as I could, even if it was the induction things, and try to make it for as many photo things as I could. But at the end of the day, I had to prepare meetings, I had to prepare practice. We had to get a football team ready for a game. Fortunately for me, I'm surrounded by a bunch of great people with a lot of experience, but ultimately, I have to be in front of these men every day. So I knew that going in, so I don't have any challenge with it at all. It was just something that I knew, but I know I wouldn't be able to experience it per se like the rest of those who didn't have immediate responsibilities.
Yeah. Well, moving on, and congrats. That's just a great honor. It was special for me and all my teammates to see you get that reward, to get that award as well. 0-2, it's not how you envisioned the start of the 2022 season, but two very different games, at least from my viewing of them from the booth. What did you feel walking off that field Saturday night in Tim Hortons Field compared to the week one as you left the field in Saskatchewan? Was it different for you?
Oh yeah, it was a different feeling. There's just a sense of just disappointment. I was you're disappointed week one also. You never feels good to lose a football game, but I felt like our staff did an outstanding job of preparing everybody, and I felt like we went out and executed for the majority of the football game. And when you're not able to finish, it's just a different feeling. I've been part of some of those comebacks. I've been on the other side of it. Those are a lot more fun.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. But this is really the first time in my career where there was a deficit like that I remember coming out on the other side of it, right? So just, it's the tale of just almost two emotions, right? Where we played pretty well in all three phases in the first half and, even parts of the third quarter. But once again, there's no moral victories, but I was extremely proud of our football team. I think it'll be hard to find a football team that's not playing hard, that's not, committed to the cause. Ultimately, it has to show up in the win column. But your question, I believe, was how did I feel? Just disappointed.
Tale of two halves. I mean, one of the most explosive, electric offensive halves that we've seen in a long time, I feel like. Just Dane was so sharp. What did you do so well in the half that then didn't click right in the second half?
Well, I think we got the ball out quick, right? And I think we didn't take sacks. We didn't take negative yardage plays, and we were able to, the wind was a factor, and I thought we played a decent wind game, and you've been part of many of those, and it is a factor here at Tim Hortons Field a lot of the time. So I would say that, we were sharp there in all three phases, and that's why the score was the way it was. And I think we had an opportunity to really cement that going, obviously into the wind. And, we had a turnover down there in the end zone. And then we went for it again later in the quarter on a third and about 1.5 and weren't able to convert. And those type of things aren't great. And then, defense, we had them in third down and we didn't make a stop. So this isn't a finger pointing. It's a collective thing. We had opportunities to, the game's never over, but we had opportunities to really make it really tough on Calgary with any early score coming out of the half.
The inverse of that, did you see a recognizable or identifiable change in Calgary, who struggled to get any sort of rhythm offensively in the first half, and in the third quarter looked entirely different?
I think this had more opportunity. I think, we took the wind in the third quarter, and just tried to keep that. And I thought they managed it pretty well when they had it. But you're not going to keep teams down. Very, very rarely are you going to get lopsided scores in this league. It's usually going to come down to something within 10 points or something like that. So, I just think they executed a little bit better than we did, and the game is about coming down to execution a lot of the times.
Yeah, Coach, I've been in your meetings, locker rooms. I know for a fact the way that that ball security is taught and how it's preached, the importance of that. Ticats are at -4 right now in the turnover ratio. The thing that jumps out to me that's interesting, or I guess surprising, is the fumbles. And maybe I assume a number of interceptions in the CFL. It's a wide field, it's a passing league. But you guys have had a couple fumbles in each of these games. What is there a change in the way you're presenting this to the team? What's your strategy from a coaching perspective as to how to flip that stat line around moving forward?
Well, just you hope the motivation is that we're going to have a hard time winning if we continue to turn the ball over, and at this rate, it's just going to make it hard. It doesn't make it impossible, but it sure makes it tough. And whether it's fumbles or interceptions, we just got to work on our ball security. As far as the practicing things, you've been part of it. We're emphasizing it every day, when we go out there. However, you can't play for them. And the thing about the players is that nobody's going out there trying to mess up, right? It's just got to be that important to them. And sometimes, Luke, you're part of some outstanding locker rooms, as was I. And, most of the time that I found on the great teams, by the time the head coach or a position coach or a coordinator went to curb something, it had already been handled. And I think that's what it always has to come from within, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it just and I'm not saying we don't have that. I'm just saying that that's when it becomes the most meaningful and the most serious isn't the right word, but you understand where where I'm coming from right now. So I think that's the approach. We always are going to address the elephant in the room. We don't run from that. Mm-hmm. And you just tell them the reality is we keep this up, it's going to make it real hard on her.
Yeah. You mentioned the third and short scenarios, both offensively and defensively. When it comes down to that choice, say taking the 3 points, obviously, the turnover on that third and short is so costly but can't be predicted or really prevented other than just what we discussed, just an emphasis on ball security. But is that an evolving decision-making moment for you? Are you sort of still analyzing when or is that something you can just double down on and say this is what we're going to do in situations like this, and we've got to just get better at it?
Well, I think for every game it's a little bit different.
Okay.
I remember, I think in 19, I think we were almost flawless.
Yeah.
When it came to that, and and it wasn't like it was always a gimme. It was just a high level of confidence. So I think for us right now, it's to sit here and say that, no, it's just a cookie cutter model. We're going every time. Depending on the game situation, the win situation, for example, they're going to get the ball at the 40 if we kick a field goal right there. They're going to take the ball and they're going to have the win. And there's just so many factors that people don't put into it. Whereas if we get it and we score a touchdown, we know we're kicking off, and it's a different thing. So, I felt very confident that we would be able to execute that. And, and when it came to the one heading the other way, sometimes you don't get them, but you're not expecting the other team to be lining up for an extra point. You're not, how do you don't, those type of things you're not prepared for, because you don't practice those. You don't practice a sudden change, quarterback sneak fumble for a touchdown.
Right.
That's those are tough breaks, and I got to believe that we'll have our fair share of good ones moving forward.
It looks very different this year, where teams electing to go to offense instead of go to kick return after a field goal. The starting on the 40-yard line, it feels dangerous deep from a defensive mindset. It's so much yardage already given up. And just visually from the 7th floor from our booth, it's like it's jumping out to me. It's like, oh man, like you got to take it into account as to whether or not you're going to try a field goal or punt, or whether it's an interesting decision making conundrum. That, along with the wider hash marks, have those two things been discussed? Are they becoming part of your game time or your in-game decision making?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I would say more so, electing to take the football or not, or if we want the time off the clock, if we want to make them run one more time. There's just the in-game scenarios that you got to manage. So, as far as the hash marks and that, I mean, you're starting to feel the effects a little bit of how people are using it. And some people are just carrying on business as usual. But, it doesn't mean that game planning and those things, aren't taking a turn. So I think we need a bigger sample size. By the time we get to Labor Day, I think you'll have a good idea of if the points have been affected, if bigger play calls, if we are really attacking the field corner as much as we anticipated. So I just think it's ongoing right now, and we'll collect a bigger sample size and be able to give you a more accurate answer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the statistics as the season progresses across the league as to who is percentage of electing to take the ball or to go to the return, and we'll keep an eye on that as we go. Coach, looking forward. You guys are going to Winnipeg. Yes, reigning Grey Cup champs. They're 2-0, but their wins have been far from blowouts. They had two very close battles with Ottawa, but they did find a way in both contests. What are they doing right now that you're preparing for?
Well, they're winning. They're finding a way to win. They're finding a way to finish, despite the adversity and a little bit of changeover in their roster. They've managed to remain competitive, and they still look very well coached. And I'm looking at them in all three phases. I think they do a good job up front on both sides of the football, which always bodes well for receivers, quarterbacks, and of course defensive backs. When you're talking about defense, so. They, and they'll be at home. It's a tough place to play, but, I love the build-up, and shoot, I'm looking forward to going out there.
I loved playing in Winnipeg. Had good games out there. Yeah. It's a fun stadium. Coach, all the best as you go out west there. We will pick the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker every week throughout the CFL season, and looking forward to many more, Coach. Have a great week of prep.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke. See you soon.
Another episode of the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker is in the books. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Coach O and Luke are back next week to discuss the latest from the locker room. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.